All right, we are live on a Sunday night here on the Broadway Shuffle with Zyler, Conrad, and Clayton. I am Brennan, and boys, portal season is here, and boy, on a Sunday afternoon and evening, did it get hot for the Texas Tech Red Raiders. We're going to be with you guys here for about an hour, and if certain news happens to break during this time, we will keep you updated in some very new developments. It was reported about 30 minutes ago that Brendan Sorsby is projected to be now going to Texas Tech. Seems like he decided to join the Red Raiders instead of the LSU Tigers. So we'll get to that and much more. Austin Romaine, some receivers have joined the Red Raiders here today. It is going to be a ton of fun wherever you are and however you may be listening. We are glad you're here with us on YouTube tonight. Conrad, this quarterback flirtation has been crazy. I mean, Brendan, it seemed like a lock going into the portal opening on the second, and then he's in Lubbock. He's leaving Lubbock to go to Baton Rouge. Sam Leavitt's coming into Lubbock. Now it's reported that Leavitt might be going to visit LSU this week, and Sorsby's committed to Tech. What are your thoughts going on here following this the last 2 days?
The range of emotions here has been something interesting. I mean, I don't know. I thought it was a done deal. I mean, if you've been with us for a while, you've been hearing my Sorsby comments on each episode, it seems. And so when LSU entered the picture, it was kind of, oh no, but it was also, well, we'll see what happens. Texas Tech does tend to dominate portal season. LSU did great last year, and I'm sure they're going to do fine this year, but it has been something that my emotions over the last 2 days, Sorsby staying in Lubbock longer than he thought, then he's leaving, then he's not getting on the plane, then he is getting on the plane. It's just been interesting. I don't know, but with the news breaking recently of Nakos, I believe, and somebody else logging a crystal ball prediction to Texas Tech for Sorsby, that makes me excited. But then again, it's portal season, so it's got to be final before I get really, really excited.
Yeah, Z, your thoughts on just this whole process with the portal season, what's true, what's not true. It's been hilarious seeing some things online and people breaking things and not breaking things and people that don't actually know until they find out breaking things. And it's just been something that's been pretty funny to watch. Your thoughts on this overall process the first 2 days?
Yeah, I think one thing that we always like to make sure that we're clear on here at the Broadway Shuffle is that we are not relatively sourced reporters. We get all of our stuff with our affiliation with Red Raider Sports. Chris and Ben, those guys do a great job, and we love following along with most of our listeners who are also on there engaging. And if you've been like me, relentlessly refreshing the transfer portal thread, it has been the worst roller coaster ride imaginable. The portal's about to open, and all of a sudden there's a reporter who says, hey, listen, LSU's dropped in and they are not going away. And it's like, oh crap, like talking about Sorsby. And it's just been this massive roller coaster ride where he's going to LSU. No, he's visiting Tech. He's not going to leave Lubbock. Oh, he's actually going to Baton Rouge. We're pulling our offer. We're pivoting to Leavitt. We're not pivoting to Leavitt. We don't like Leavitt. And then it's Sorsby's coming to Tech. I mean, that's what the predictions are right now. It's been an insane ride. The message I have to Lane Kiffin, if you're going to come at the king, you best not miss. I'm just saying. But and I think there was a guy on Red River Sports that said it best. In the transfer portal, Texas Tech makes the rules, and that's just how it seems that this one's going to go too. So we'll see. I mean, that nothing's done till it's signed on the dotted line, but it looks like this is heading in a really good direction for Texas Tech.
Clayton, your thoughts on Brendan Sorsby specifically? And again, he hasn't officially announced. It's just been reported by On3 that they're predicting Brendan Sorsby to be a Red Raider, though 4 or 5 hours ago, 247 had him as a lock to go to LSU. And so this has changed within the hour. Clay, your thoughts on all that?
Yeah, it's been nuts. I think you alluded to it yesterday to me. It kind of feels like the DeAndre Jordan free agency thing that happened with the Mavs. It feels like this is like the closest thing, like flight tracking. Oh, he's not on the plane. Oh, he just followed weeks. Oh, Terrence Carter's commenting on this. I feel like it's been so funny to follow all of that. But to be honest, I was fine with either him or Leavitt, but I feel like the Leavitt injury situation, missing the spring, with Hammond also missing the spring. So like, I guess Lloyd Jones would be your QB1 for all of spring. I feel like that's where, to me, probably pushed me over to the Sorsby side. I think he's going to be electric in Lubbock next year. Can't wait to see who he's throwing to. And yeah, I feel like, I was, like I said, I was fine with both those guys, but I'd always love to locker Lane Kiffin any chance I get. So definitely happy with Sorsby if it comes to fruition.
Yeah, Lane Kiffin's like a honorary Tommy Tubberville. We could change the award to him almost if we wanted to for some of the disdain outside of Conrad here in the chat.
Conrad saying, "Have you seen the many lives of Lane Kiffin?" I mean, we talked about that like 5 times on our episode. It was crazy.
Yeah, I don't think there's any problem. It's a great documentary. I don't know. I really like. I mean, obviously I'm pro Texas Tech, but you can like other people too in college sports, guys. I hope y'all know that.
No, I don't know that.
Okay.
So we got the Sorsby conversation. We'll obviously see. We have a question. If we get Sorsby, do we get Cam Coleman? You are making some news in the portal today in the receiver room, which I do find interesting. I don't know if that means Cam Coleman would not be a part of that, but you did land a commitment from Alabama State wide receiver Jalen Jones.
Woo!
You landed a commitment from Liberty wide receiver Dante Lee Jr.
Wow.
So I'm not certain if that means Cam Coleman would not be in the rotation. I mean, what do you say, Z?
We would take Cam. He's not getting pushed out by Dante Lee. Okay. No disrespect, but you have room.
And then this is a live update from Pete Thamel that Brendan Sorsby is leaving his LSU visit. He's yet to make a commitment. He's told coaches at Texas Tech and LSU that he'll make a decision tonight. This is from ESPN's Pete Thamel. Just got that notification. So I don't know if what do we think? I mean, is that pretty confident here for your Texas Tech, or is this, man, he really hasn't decided? It is DeAndre Jordan. Is LSU going to go lock him up, Clay, and keep him in a room and force him to make a decision? What do we think? Does that change anything knowing that's the most updated report?
It doesn't change anything for me. I feel like the note that he's leaving LSU, if he was going to commit to LSU, I feel like he would just do it while he's on campus. He wouldn't leave and then tell him he's going to make a decision later tonight. So that, I mean, along with the other, crystal balls, I feel like that signals that he's probably Tech bound. But I don't know. That's just my thoughts.
You know what Lane should do if he's really serious about getting Brendan Sorsby is put Sorsby in a cage with Mike the Tiger and say, "We're not letting you out until you commit to LSU." But
so potentially kill him.
Go to a hot yoga session.
Yeah, go to a hot yoga session and said
I'm sure that was part of the agenda.
Yeah,
I'm sure that was part of the agenda.
Free passes to the best hot yoga in Baton Rouge. I'm sure those places are great, man. But if you're looking at this on a Texas Tech level, Zyler, and what Sorsby means to this team, Terrence Carter coming back, the running back room is going to be deep. The receiver room looks like it's going to be deep. Your offensive line's still going to be pretty good, if not get more improved. It's still early. We still got 2 weeks left of the transfer portal. What Sorsby adds to that, I mean, that there's a reason people are so excited here. It's not that you're just elevating the position. Your whole entire offense will be elevated by a guy like Sorsby.
Yeah, and I don't want this, and I think we'll talk Barron a little bit later, but I don't want this to be a referendum on Barron, but he just does a lot of things that, through no fault of Barron's, that he couldn't do this year. Barron couldn't run this year, and Sorsby adds such a dynamic element to your QB run game. And I think when you watch, and Brennan, we talked about this in the Orange Bowl reaction, when you watch guys like Fernando Mendoza, I don't think the arm talent between Fernando and Barron is different at all. I think they're very comparable. Fernando's ability to escape the pocket and run for 6 yards or just extend the play was huge for them in that game. He made so many massive plays, and Barron had a broken leg. That's just something he couldn't do this year. And I think Brendan adds that to your offense if he does end up coming on with the Red Raiders. That, to me, is the biggest piece, is what he can do with his legs. And he's obviously a great passer. We've talked about that and compared him. I loved him when he came 2 years ago when Cincinnati visited you. I thought he was great. He hadn't thrown an interception until he played against your team. And I think A.J. McCarty took one back to the house, or at least got close. I thought he was a great quarterback at that point. So, yeah, really excited. I'd love to hear, what other listeners have and what they think about Brendan and what he maybe brings. But I would be very, very excited for your offense with Sorsby under center.
Conrad?
Yeah, over these last few days, it's been interesting, with the Orange Bowl concluding and everybody coming back to Lubbock and, thinking about, this season, but also looking forward to next. It's been interesting watching the highlight tapes and looking at the stats of Sorsby. And one thing I think you guys would probably agree, and listeners, let me know if you agree as well, that has jumped off the screen is not only what Zyler said about his running ability, but the way the ball jumps off his hand. It's got a pop. I don't know don't know if there's a comparison. I haven't thought that deeply about it, but the ball pops off of his hand. He's got a quick release. The ball is always seemingly in the right spot, hitting the receiver in the best place so that he can keep running, and he doesn't have to really the throw from Sorsby doesn't stop the momentum of the receiver, which I really think is cool, and something that will aid well for number one Micah Hudson next year. And so I really think that's going to be an exciting thing to watch with Sorsby in this offense, if in fact it does end up that way. That's really stood out to me really these last few days.
Sounds a lot like high school legend Conrad Mills there.
That's
popping
exactly
off the
where
hand.
I was
That's where my mind went right away. And
No. There were some people online saying that certain has-beens shouldn't be criticizing people, and I am not that has-been. By the way, I never was a has-been. I never will be a. So
for sure,
it's we'll see what happens.
Well, and if this is your first time listening on YouTube as well, I wanted to make sure to welcome you guys in. And if you would kindly subscribe, like the show, and if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Monday morning or Tuesday, you will probably have seen the Sorsby news break at that point. It hasn't broke at the time of this recording Sunday night. But another guy that the news did break for earlier this afternoon was Austin Romaine out of Kansas State. And he has been arguably one of the top 2 or 3 linebackers in the entire Big 12, right there, right behind Jacob Rodriguez. So if you're looking for the perfect replacement for Jacob, which is a guy that's almost impossible to replace with what he was able to do and the talent that he had this year for Texas Tech, but Austin Romaine will be the closest guy you could get to Jacob. So, Clay, your thoughts on Austin Romaine and what that brings to the defense?
Yeah, I think that's going to end up being super underrated nationally as a pickup. I feel like you said, he was probably, one of the 2 or 3 best linebackers in the Big 12 along with Jacob. I actually saw on PFF that I believe that he's been the second highest graded linebacker since 2024 behind Jacob Rodriguez. So bringing back Roberts and Curry and then just replacing, Jacob Rodriguez with the closest possible thing you could find. Pretty good start to the defense next year, along with the other returners you have. I'm interested to see how we fill in the D line, but it'll be impossible to replicate the defensive success that we had this year, like to a T. I think that'd be hard for any team, but I feel like we're off to as good of a start as you can get.
Yeah, and Z, with him too, so you got Austin coming in to fill that, but you are looking to fill some other positions, edge, particularly David Bailey, Romello Height, Lee Hunter on the inside. So some of those names you're seeing floated there, your thoughts on potential pickups at those key positions as well for Texas Tech's defense?
Yeah, and I think the staff over at Red Ritter Sports has done a great job covering this. There's a guy, Bryce Butler, and then I'm not even going to pretend to try to pronounce his last name. Level had a tough time with this. Mateen is his first name, and he's from Wake Forest. Those guys would immediately be at the top of my list. And then I think you're hosting, and it's been confirmed, Wendell Gregory from Oklahoma State, redshirt freshman. Great. I mean, I think he had the 3rd highest pressure rate in Big 12 tackle or Big 12 edge defenders. It was David Bailey, it was Romello Height, and then it was this redshirt freshman, which kind of helps with the loss. You lost Chetta O'Philly in the portal. You lost Eddie Smith to the portal. Those are players I was excited about when they came on. They're young guys. They're big. I've seen Eddie. I've seen Chetta practice. Both great looking prospects. I was bummed to lose those guys. And you also lost Braylon Rigsby. You'll bring back Ansel Nadori, but right now it's Anthony Holmes, Ansel Nadori, Charles Anderson. Like not a lot on your defensive line right now. There's just really not a lot. And then the freshman from Louisiana who missed all this, Singleton, I think Dylan Singleton is on the roster. So you need help in the trenches for sure. Now you'll be bringing in 5-star prospect LaDainian Guyton. That will help. But he's going to be 17, 18 years old. I don't expect David Bailey level production from him. And on David Bailey, man, I've seen so many guys on Twitter talking about his game against Oregon as like top 5 NFL tape they've ever seen in a game, where he was just incredibly dominant, absolutely rose to the moment. You are not replacing David Bailey. I don't think there's any player out there in the portal that, let's go find the top 5 edge defender and just throw him. That's not out there. So that's not what I'm expecting. Can you replicate it as best you can? And I think you've got some irons in the fire there.
Why do you think that guys like Chetta and Braylon are leaving? Do you think it's, hey, with what we're looking to do this year in the portal, you don't have the future here we once thought you had? Or is it, hey, I want to go test my worth and see what I can get on the open market? Why do you think that is? I know we have no way of knowing, But from y'all's perspective, what would be the reason that those guys would leave after they saw what Coach Wood's defense looks like on the field and being younger prospects?
I feel like Cheddar leaving is probably signals that you're in a good spot with Gregory and maybe someone else. I'm sure he wants to play, and like he probably feels like he deserves to play, and he is a good prospect and has shown flashes on the field. So I can't, like, if you see, and Gregory's in the same class as him, I believe. So if you see a guy like that basically getting recruited over you, I can't blame the guy for wanting to go play somewhere else.
And the rumor is Houston's the one that got him in the portal. So we may see him next year in red, but not necessarily red and black. So that would be, and Conrad, something that I thought, and it was a good point that you made, even though we disagreed about it. We need other Big 12 teams to open the checkbook. It appears that Houston is going to be spending some money in the portal. They signed what I think is the best offensive line prospect out of the portal earlier today. They've got Cam Cook on campus. I think they're going to sign some dudes, and they will be coming to Lubbock this year. That was just something I wasn't expecting, and it does appear that they will be trying to match you. Tillman Fertitta is going to try to the Cody Campbell route.
I was going to say they've got a billionaire. They've got a guy that if he wants to spend, can spend for sure down there in Houston too.
And that's a good thing for the conference, right?
It is.
Yeah.
And we've talked about, and I don't want to, never mind. I was going to talk about the state of CFP commentary and how it's awful. And then I realized the things that I'm going to describe are exactly what I do. Like there's too much like fraud watch and hating. I'm like, I talk about people being fraudulent every episode. So maybe
one of the funniest things about this whole experience, especially this year, because last season, to compare the portals, right? You go 8-4. You have the I will text message or a tweet from Cody. You come off a year where you were close, but you needed a lot of positions, and it was like fix the O-line, fix the defense, all these sort of things. This year, coming off a Big 12 championship with one of the best defenses that you've ever fielded in the history of the conference, much less your own team. And now it's like, all right, Cody, where's the money? Like, why is not everyone we wanted committed day one? I think that was the expectation of Tech fans. Like, hey, whoa, the portal's open. Like, where is everybody? I thought we were just going to keep them locked away in Lubbock. And it's not necessarily the case. Like these kids, this is a lot of their first time dealing with these sort of things. And I can speak from experience knowing some of these people, the NIL agents, they could be your mom's sister's cousin, like it doesn't necessarily have to be like the best agent in the NFL that's representing some of these kids. So there is a lot of inexperience, not very professional people representing some of these college teenagers. And so that process can be a little, that are millionaires that can take, some of the professionalism out of it. And so I do think that when you're dealing with NIL agents, this process can take a little longer than expected at times. But Clayton and I were talking yesterday, Conrad, about how, remember the old NBA free agency? Like you mentioned the DeAndre Jordan, where they'd go on all these visits and like LeBron would go to Chicago and Miami and New York, and they'd do all these elaborate things. That's what college football transfer portal has essentially become, like these college kids taking visits. But man, it's an exciting time for Texas Tech. The fact that you can double up on this 2025 season and go into next year with potentially even more hype.
Brendan, I thought you brought up, or Conrad, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that it would be crazy to see. Do you think, I would say probably it would be, just like you said, it would be more hype because this coaching staff has shown, okay, they can get these pieces to gel. Now, the only thing I think, looking back at this year with guys like Barron and J-Rod in the building, even though Barron didn't practice in spring, you felt pretty good about, the leadership of this team, right? Like you felt from the player perspective. Now, with certain guys coming back, BJ coming back, Jacoby coming back, most likely, different guys coming back. You feel good-ish, but you don't feel, they're not at the same level of leadership qualities that Barron and J-Rod were. And so looking at it from that perspective, it'll be interesting to see how this team gels, because I think even though you're still going to have a lot of hype, obviously pending Sorsby, I think that's a big deal because depending on what happens with Sorsby and Leavitt, things can go wildly different, just as we thought they would, yesterday when the Leavitt stuff was smoke. And so I'm excited to see what happens with this team going into next year, because it'll be different because a lot more of these players will be new, because it does feel like pretty much every single year in college sports, you are starting over again and again and again. that's just part of the world we live in now. But excited to see what this looks like when you do bring in these new guys on this roster for next year.
Conrad, one quick note. There was a guy who PM'd me, and he said he saw you in Miami. He said you were looking excellent, looked very suntanned, and thought you were looking really sharp out there. So there's a listener who noticed you. He didn't want to say hi. He was a little too starstruck.
That was that I saw a couple people. It was funny. I'll tell this story now, and if you're listening and you have not subscribed, please do so. Helps the show out a lot. It helps us reach more Red Raiders. But my father-in-law and I were I can't remember if I told this story or not, but I'm gonna tell it again anyway. We were in South Beach, went to the Clevelander, and then we went to dinner at this Cuban restaurant, and there was a group of listeners that was there, and we actually met at Evie Mae's, and we saw each other again at the same restaurant, just not in Lubbock, Texas, but in Miami. And so I guess if you want to know where to eat, you just reach out to me, and I'll tell you where to go get some good food in Miami and in Lubbock too. I thought that was hilarious that we ran into each other at the same places in two different cities.
I love that, Conrad. This is a question, one, for the audience, and I want to hear people chime in on this because I don't really have a great sense for the pulse of the people here. So for the hundreds of you in the chat, let me know. And Brennan, I kind of want to address it to you first. And you brought up something interesting where you feel like Tech fans are like, where are all the commits? Why are we not dominating again? Do you feel like there's more pressure on Tech football this year than there was last year? Because I feel, and that's weird because you just had the best season in program history. And now everybody's like, okay, next year we need to go win a game. It's like, and not that there's not contentment and appreciation, but I feel the weight of expectations on this team. What do you think?
It just moves so fast now where the season ends and then the next day the portal is open and you're like, hey, we got to roll, and that's just what you deal with in college football. And I do think that how you won the Big 12, I mean, you completely dominated the conference, but then you get not completely embarrassed because your defense held their own, but your offense got embarrassed against Oregon. And I do think that set the expectation of like, okay, go get the guys that can score on offense to win you a playoff game. And so because of that, I do think there's more pressure for Texas Tech going into next season to not only win the Big 12, but to actually compete in the playoffs. Like you can accomplish step one. You accomplish your goal. Your goal going into the season was not go win the national championship. I mean, that's everybody's goal, but your goal was to make it to Arlington. That was what was addressed. It was go to the Big 12 championship and win it, and you did that. Next year, your goal is going to be do that again and then go win a national championship. Like you've established and built the culture to go get it done. And so I do think there's more pressure on 2026 than there was coming into this year. We just didn't really know what we had. Like, I think it was kind of like, okay, I've heard of this David Bailey guy, but like in Lee Hunter, like it sounded really cool. But I think next year it's going to be like, here we are. You've got to go win. You've got to go make a college football semifinal with what we've got.
Oof. That's a lot of pressure.
Like I'm on the other side personally. I think I think there was more pressure last year because you had to prove that you could do it. And I realize I'm saying this on January 4th. My opinion might change when we're like 2 weeks out from kickoff, and maybe I'm looking at this through Joey's eyes, but like there was definitely people, I'm not saying this was like the sentiment inside the building, but there was people saying Joey would get fired if we went like 8-4, 9-3. And that's definitely not the case this upcoming year, regardless of like who we land, how much we spend. So I don't know. I kind of feel like last year there was more pressure because we hadn't done the things that we basically had the expectations to do. If that makes sense. Like I think that
I hear that.
I get what you're saying. I think you've set yourself on the national landscape, and then how you got embarrassed. It's kind of like, hey, you showed you can go dominate the Big 12, and you've got a lot of dudes on your roster already that are probably going to go do that with the schedule set up. I think it's postseason success next year now that you've established yourself. I did want to shout out real quick because I saw him in the chat, but Frosty Mug is back in the chat. And he's the Oregon fan from the Reaction. So Frosty, we love you, dude. Thanks for being here. He said the Big 12 is the second best conference in America, top to bottom. So good to see Frosty back in the chat.
So, hey, let me
see hatred. Let it flow. Let it run through you. I know he thinks the Big Ten's top dog. We will gladly take second. We will take it.
Brennan, there's been time to reflect on this year. I was talking to somebody about it today, and if you would have told me before, in August, I think all of us, even losing 23-0 to Oregon, I think I know for a fact, you tell me on August 1st, 12-2 Big 12 title game. The only game you lose in the regular season is without your starting quarterback at the defending Big 12 champs the year before, and then you lose to Oregon, and then you blow everyone else out, and you blow BYU out twice in the Big 12 title game. I sign that. And if that's our season every year for the next 20 years, I'm in. Like I'm in every year. Now, would you want more than that? Of course. But if you knew that was what was going to happen, I think every Tech fan would say, yeah, like that sounds pretty good. Obviously, that's not going to be what it is because that's just not how it is. But I don't know. For me, now that you've showed you can do it, it almost makes it the expectation in a sense. Like, unless you do see what we see with Houston right now being willing to spend, unless you see someone willing to come up to your level, I do think that this will be continue to be the norm for Texas Tech, assuming the investment continues, right? I mean, make sure to donate to the Red Raider Club so it does. But it's one of those things that you do feel like if this is how it continues to go, at some point we will win a playoff game. I know we will, but we also have to remember that Oregon, like we talked about in the preview episode, they were Texas Tech for a long time. They still have not gotten to their goal. It takes a long, 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 long time to reach your goal. And maybe Oregon will do it this year, but I'm excited for next year, but I don't know that I'm willing to put the same level of expectations because we haven't seen what the portal hall looks like completed yet.
Conrad, and I want to shout out, I think it's, Jesse Ellis. I thought this was a good point. The realignment window that's coming soon, I think, does add an element of pressure. You don't have long to cement yourself as a top dog nationally. And I think you made a great step forward this year. And what I'm hoping for is the Indiana path, where everybody kind of thought Indiana was fraudulent, make it into a playoff, get kind of embarrassed. But then you go back and you dominate again in the regular season and you make the postseason again, and you start winning some games against some really good teams. Now, Indiana hasn't beaten a really good team yet. That's the one thing that I will say about their postseason run. A little bit tongue in cheek there, but
don't say that.
They beat Ohio State in the
no. So I guess, in the playoff.
Yeah.
That's what I'm kind of hoping for Tech next year. Now, that's not going to be the expectation or like the baseline for standard of success. But I do think that realignment window that's coming is motivating our boosters and our faculty and our administration more than just about anything. We have to show that we are a relevant force and that we could compete in those other leagues to be, and put our best foot forward. And I think that's a really good point. So thanks for mentioning that.
I don't know. I just think that if you're going to get the number one quarterback in the portal, if you're going to get the potentially number one wide receiver, best skill position player in the portal in Cam Coleman, if you do snag him, you get Austin Romaine, you're trying to fill all these positions. That's not to go win the Big 12.
If that happens,
that's to go win. That's to go win a national championship. That's the expectation you're setting. If you wanted to go get DJ Lagway and just fill the quarterback position just until Will got healthy, then you're like trying to win the Big 12. You can hold on until October and do that. You're getting Brendan Sorsby. You're flirting with Cam Coleman, and you're pushing no stops, even with trying to get Sam Leavitt in if Sorsby doesn't work out, because you want to go win a national championship. So I think Texas Tech is telling us our expectation goes beyond the Big 12, where I think going into 2025, it was, or, the 2025 season, counting the portal window last year, it was, we got to get to the Big 12 championship. We've got to establish ourselves within the conference. You've done that. Now you need to go establish yourself nationally again, how you weren't able to do on the national stage against Oregon.
And even with what I said about, 12-2 Orange Bowl appearance, Big 12 championship, this has to leave a really sour taste in the mouths of staff, players, coaches. I mean, you cannot tell me that, yes, it was a great season. I was thrilled to be there in Miami, but man, putting up a goose egg on national TV like that stings. Like that stings. And like, I'm so happy with how this season went overall, but man, that doesn't sit well with me. And that if that doesn't sit well with any of us, and all the people in the comments, let us know what you guys think. It doesn't sit well with Joey, with Coach Leftwich, with Coach Wood, and the current players that are coming back next year.
Conrad, there's a comment in here about your Orange Bowl scarf you've got behind you.
Yeah,
Looking
y'all want
good
me to
up on
wear
the
it?
wall. New additions to the wall there behind Conrad with his media passes as well too. So
Yeah, I did not buy any merch. There was a quick side story again from Miami. I know we're looking back, but there was I don't know who was selling this Orange Bowl merch inside the Clevelander, but it looked like it got printed at some shop right down the street in South Beach and toted over to the Clevelander. Stuff was like $42 for a T-shirt that looked like, it did not look good. So no, I did not buy any Orange Bowl merch.
okay, that's good to know. Do you, and then someone says, DJ, I picked up Lagway in the portal and won the natty. So maybe if only it could be a video game. Clayton, we'll probably not. It doesn't seem like Brennan Sorsby is going to announce within this hour, but all right. You think we got it in the next 30,
I think you're about 30
minutes
out. I think you're 20 to 30 minutes out.
Should we commit
hope
to
so.
staying online until he announces?
We could definitely stay on as late as we need to. But Clay, I mean, I will say one thing about Sorsby and Romaine when we bring up the leadership question. I thought this was a great point. I think, Conrad, you made it because Barron and Jacob were in the program. So you did bring in all these highly touted transfers, but you did have leadership within the program. You had guys that have been in Lubbock, that loved Lubbock, and that loved Joey and the team. Your leaders next year, you mentioned Brendan Jordan, Coy Aiken. I mean, there's going to be guys involved, but the linebacker and the quarterback are kind of the head of the monster when it comes to leaders. And Romaine and Sorsby they're older guys coming in too. So do you have any concern that the gelling process will not be as good for Texas Tech as it was because you don't have guys like Morton and Rodriguez in the locker room?
Maybe, but I think there's definitely guys that can fill that void. And I don't have like concerns with Sorsby and Romaine as far as leadership. Obviously, I don't know what they're like. But I feel like being in the Big 12, and you got guys like Ben Roberts who have been in the program for 4 years, John Curry, like Brennan Jordan, Chapman Lewis, those guys are all veterans now. I would think and Skylar Gill Howard was a 1-year player, and he was a leader on our defense for us last year and only played half of the year, and it seemed like he was still the leader. So I think you're right about there being a void, but I don't have concerns that either those guys or someone else on the roster can't fill those voids going into next year.
Who do you think, because the guys that I kind of pinpoint would be guys like John Curry, maybe, it's hard to me, like Sheridan Wilson or something like that, but I don't really see like the O-line being the vocal leader. To me, it's John Curry, it's Brendan Jordan, but that's kind of it. I don't really know that those leaders are clearly established where it's like going into last year, I knew it was Rodriguez. I knew it was Morton. Those are clearly the leaders of the units. I just don't know.
I think Sorsby has to, the QB has to be one.
That's why you want Sorsby. That's why that's why he's preferred, at least from all the rumors we've read, over a guy like Leavitt.
Do we know that Leavitt is a bad lead? I think some of that is maybe he is fine. I'll say it. He's a good looking guy. Okay. We can say that.
I wanted to bring this up. Is this a battle of who's more attractive? Is it Sorsby, Leavitt, two young, handsome kids, man? It's be
careful how you talk about.
I know I've got to be careful here.
I'm going to stop there.
But
I do want to touch on that though. The narrative shifting from the fan bases, not just Tex, but LSU as well. The last 2 days has been hilarious. One day, I really like Leavitt better. I don't like Sorsby as much. He hasn't shown that he can be the guy. And then flip flop. Oh, actually, Sorsby's way better. And I feel for Kentucky too. Kentucky is really getting left out in the cold in all this if Leavitt ends up at LSU. But I thought that was funny.
But I don't think Leavitt was ever going to go to Kentucky. I don't think Dante Moore is coming back to Oregon. There's no way, right? And if Oregon opens, I think Leavitt would want to go there. He's from Oregon.
I don't know. You got to think about this with Dante Moore real quick. When you've got a guy like Phil Knight, who he might pay north of $7, $8, $9 million to keep Dante there. And if you're looking at your draft position and you're going do I really want to go to the Jets? Do I really want to go now more than ever? Kids can choose to not go to to go to the NFL out of desperation. They can make a bag and then wait their turn to see maybe this team will have the number 1 or number 3 pick next year. I think it's more incentivizing now to stay in college than ever was. So on Dante's situation, I do think he definitely could stay with a guy like Phil Knight there. But to your point on Leavitt and Sorsby, I did want to touch on Z that you had not been that high on Leavitt, like very often at all.
No, and
So do you care to judge? Do you care to explain that, like why you like Sorsby more than Leavitt?
well, one, I prefer the better looking QB, and that'll be the final thing I say about that. But it's like when I watch Leavitt, and I'm not going to say he's a bad quarterback because I kind of had to take this back. It's a little reckless. It reminded me a little bit of like all the tendencies that Baker had without as much of the talent. Now, I'm not saying that Leavitt's a bad QB. Like, please don't hear me say that. And I would have been backtracking all of this, but I was on a Leavitt like hate campaign. Maybe it's because I don't know. To me, there's a lot of rawness to his game that I don't know that's necessarily been ironed out. And I think there's something to be said about Jordan Tyson making him look really, really good. That's not to say that Leavitt is a bad QB. That's not what I'm saying. If I got to choose based on talent alone and based on what I know as a fan, that's nothing character-wise, I would take Sorsby almost every time. Now, conveniently, that looks like the quarterback that we're going to get, and I recognize how that comes off. But that was my preference from the get-go, and he's graded out better on a lot of different metrics. So that's the other thing that I have there.
You know, one thing I said on Red Raider Sports as we were talking about this is, you know, after fans are still going to look back to the Orange Bowl with 0 points on the board looking into next year. And obviously that's the reason you're in the market for, I mean, not only Barron leaving and Will getting hurt, but you're looking to get the best possible player at that position. And for me, considering Leavitt's injury, I wanted, and I don't know if I'm just, you know, this is a wishful thinking, but I would rather get a quarterback that can go through spring practice who's learning a brand new offense, trying to lead a team for the first time. Barron was unique, obviously, with his, you know, credibility, his experience, all those things. For me, looking at Sorsby and Leavitt, I prefer Sorsby for all the reasons that Zyler said, but also just an added layer on top of that. I would love a guy that's able to learn it, not from just in the meeting room, but on the practice field. And so that's why I wanted Sorsby leadership thing as well. All those things that you can talk about, but not going through spring practice and then trying to go win a playoff game out. I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm not saying it's impossible, but that's just another thing I would like. That's a preference, not a need.
I agree. That's a plus.
Yeah, I agree.
But two of the
Did y'all see that
QBs
comment?
left.
Yeah,
didn't
I'm reading. I see that comment. Yeah.
I see it as well.
Sorry. Go ahead, Clay.
Clay, go
No, I was
ahead.
just gonna say two of the QBs left in the playoff didn't go through spring ball, so I don't think it's with new teams too. So I don't think it's like a necessity, but I agree that it's obviously a plus, especially when your QB2 is also not going through spring.
Yeah, the Trahan, you'll just have to subscribe to find out, man. Subscribe and join us on the journey, and you'll get an answer soon enough. But yeah, I do think that the quarterback position for Tech, we talk about Barron. I know y'all wanted to talk about his legacy a little bit here, Conrad, as well too, and what this means. And like, it's so hard because we're so amped about the quarterback position, but you've got a guy in Will Hammond who's still going to be around and available. And I think the majority of fans like Will Hammond, but what Barron left specifically, and now how much people are talking about the other quarterback, is making it seem like we're diminishing what Barron did at all based off his last performance at Tech. So do you want to touch on Barron specifically, looking back on his year as a whole, just and what he means to Texas Tech as we are about to get his replacement here, hopefully very soon?
Yeah, you know, I said on our reaction episode with the worst audio I've ever heard in my life. So if you listen to that, thanks for listening. I said that it may drop him for me from 5 to 10 in terms of all-time Texas Tech quarterbacks. I'm going to rescind that with every fiber in my being. He is I think he's number 3 all time, and his trump card for me is 5 years at Texas Tech, first Big 12 championship quarterback. You can say Mahomes, Harrell, whoever you want to say, Simmons, Potts, Sheffield. What you know, it doesn't matter. You could have said that they would have won the Big 12 with this team, but the reality is they didn't, and Barron did, and he's got that feather in his cap forever. He was an extremely good player for you. He didn't take you to the level that you wanted to get to, but granted, there are very few people that could. And so for me, looking at Barron, it's like, man, Red Raiders need to appreciate him. did he ever get us, we didn't win a national championship with any quarterback. And so appreciate Barron. I've seen a lot of stuff online. I'm sure you guys have as well. The personal attacks on him, uncalled for and completely classless from a fan base that should not do that. That is not who we are. That's not what we should be about. And we should appreciate him for what he did for Texas Tech, because you're never going to see another Baron Morton play quarterback for Texas Tech. So 5 years, all the yards, all the records, all the injuries, everything like that. So I appreciate him, and I think he is cemented as a Red Raider great, even though the last performance was not what we had hoped.
Yeah, he'll be that weird guy that, like, I don't think a Ring of Honor invite's coming for him. He's never going to be like an all-time stats guy. But as far as fan favorite, he's just done, and I won't belabor the point, he's just done everything you could have wanted. And he is a very traditional quarterback in a very non-traditional era. Stuck it out through injuries, stuck it out through guys getting recruited here. Like Shuck came in when he was still here. Battled it with Donovan, like didn't get the starting job and still stuck it out, and then led you to the first title in your first playoff. Like that to me is going to have so much sentimental value when you say, yeah, Baron Morton as a quarterback. I'm going to think of all those things that we accomplished as a university and as a team, and that he was the leader of that, even though he was far from one of the best players on that roster. And he'll always, I don't bear any ill will towards Baron, despite him being on Mars during our playoff game. And he just was, and I hate that for him. He wants that win more than anybody. So, love Baron.
Clay, we're getting a question here in the chat. If we get Sorsby or Leavitt, which, again, the Sorsby news is coming tonight. It's looking like Sorsby, and he, at least it's being reported that he is going to make a decision tonight, whether it's released tonight. This is currently live on YouTube, so we don't have that yet. But if we get Sorsby or Leavitt, do we think we can open up the playbook more? Thoughts on that? I mean, Clayton, it seems like the playbook would just naturally open up with the fact that Sorsby is significantly more mobile than Baron.
Agreed. Yeah, that's what I was about to say. I think I don't know if that does anything to like your passing game playbook, but just having a QB that's mobile enough where you can move the pocket, you can have QB design runs, he can scramble. Also that the RPOs I feel like have a lot more traction whenever the QB run is one of the options. I agree with you. I think it'll just naturally open up and then if you land a guy, I think it's still unlikely, but if we were to land Cam Coleman, I also think like that just is something that this offense did not necessarily have this year. And I thought our receivers were good, but you didn't have a guy like that. I think with him, Carter, Jacoby, and then a QB who could run, I feel like that's nightmare offense to defend.
Dude, with Terrence Carter
and Joyner. Yeah. Don't forget Joyner.
Jacoby,
a good offensive line.
Howard Sampson's coming back. He announced that. Like, you got a lot of really good. Another thing.
You touch on that real quick on the offensive line. Who do you have returning for sure on the O-line? Because I think people would want to know, how is your offensive line going to be significantly improved? Is it going to stay the same? Is it going to downgrade a little bit? What are your thoughts on the front line there?
So, I think the most important positions for an offensive line are always going to be the tackle spots and the center spot. You should bring back Sheridan Wilson. You should bring back Jacob Ponton, and Howard Sampson's confirmed to be back. So that's your left tackle, your center, and your right tackle. Now, Davian Carter and Will Jados eligibility expired. So what do you do there? I imagine Cash Cleveland and Hunter Zambrano are probably the early runners there. And I think that's at worst a wash. I think, and then you've got guys, Holton Hendricks, Daniel Sill. You'll have Bryce Gilmore coming in. You will have Felix Ojo, the 5-star offensive tackle, coming in. Depth-wise should be massively improved, and potentially from the top line, your weakest link was Jados at the left guard position. I think you should improve there too, and that should help your run blocking a lot. So I expect that to be a good unit again. But injuries happen. Different things happen. Guys may decide that, hey, my girlfriend's moving to Florida. I want to go. Stuff can happen, and not everybody's in the bank yet, but all indications are that should be a really solid offensive line.
Yeah, and that's great news too, because I think we saw against Oregon the inability to run the ball effectively definitely had an impact on the passing game's inefficiencies as well too. And so that's something when you're going against top 5 teams in the country that have stout defensive lines like you did this year, you need a good offensive line as well in the run and pass game. I know it's kind of getting into a question. I wanted to ask you guys this too, just with all the news. The Orange Bowl and reflecting on the time in Miami, Conrad, and seeing like what that meant for Texas Tech, the responses from the national media on the Big 12, like that the Big 12 was significantly overrated. It proved that they don't deserve a national spot. I was seeing tweets that the Big 12 should never be given a bye again in the college football playoff.
Who said that?
Some
Dan Wolkin was out of his
Oh, yeah.
seat
yeah,
with
yeah,
the-
the Yahoo Sports guy, which by the way, during the press conference in the hotel in Miami, he was right behind me. Dude looks like a prick, but and seems to be proving it.
Doesn't
But
he cover horse racing?
does he? I don't
He's a
know.
national guy.
I just didn't like. He was wearing sweats. He just looked a little, But Yahoo Sports. I mean, who works at Yahoo anyways? So Conrad, but your thoughts on the Big 12 and the impact that this might have made on the conference with Texas Tech laying an egg in Miami?
Yeah, that's a longer conversation. I mean, does Alabama getting whipped the way they did have a leave a
Great
black
point.
eye on the SEC? They got whipped worse than we did. Now Oregon's obviously. I mean, we'll see. Is Oregon as good as Indiana? I don't know. We'll see that on Friday night. I'm not a fan of the. I think the conference conversation is just another planned media talking point. Is there some merit to it? Yes, there is, because you've got to compare to some level or another. But we let up 23 points and and the last touchdown was in the last, what was it? 45 seconds. This defense, I mean, it's one of the top 2 in college football this year. Just because our offense did not play to the level that they could or that they'd hoped they would, that doesn't mean you say the Big 12 isn't a good conference. Like that's not what you say. It should show respect to Texas Tech, obviously, with what we did in the Big 12. But at the same time, you can't just wash away everything and say they're not good. I mean, next year the Big 12 will still get a bid to the college football playoff, as they should every year. Saying that the Big 12 shouldn't is I don't understand. Like that's what's been, and for everybody who's live right now, that's what's been so interesting for us in this, in our venture into sports media. We've learned that people just say things they don't even really believe just to get clicks. Like that's the business. And so for me, it's wondering, like Stephen A. Smith and Skip Bayless were pros at that for years before anybody could get on YouTube and do it. And so it makes me wonder, like, do these people actually believe the stuff that's coming out of their mouths? Or do they just say it to get clicks? Like I really do believe something like that's not like what Dan said. No one who follows college sports thinks that's a serious take. Like hopefully no one does. I mean, maybe there are people, but I don't know. I don't think the Big 12 should be disrespected because of what Texas Tech did.
Clay?
Yeah, I saw a tweet the other day that I thought was really funny and like honestly pretty accurate. It was basically saying that college football fandom is just calling every team in conference a fraud until there's one team left that's not a fraud. And I feel like that's genuinely how everyone looks at college football. And I'm totally guilty of this myself with the SEC. I'll be the first to admit. But I think that making these passing judgments on a conference based on a one game sample size is just idiotic. And you could make this same case for basically every conference at some point in time in the last 5 years. So no, I do not think it says anything about the Big 12. And Conrad's point about it being the second best defense, I think this is generally one of the best college defenses of the last 20 years. And there are metrics that back that up as well.
Yeah.
Yep. Totally. What was great is that Bama was the foil to every SEC argument this year after being the reason they made so many arguments for so many years. Like Bama losing to Florida State held up so many arguments against the SEC all year. And then them getting blown out by Indiana holds up so many arguments for other conferences. And it's so funny that they carried the conference for, I don't want to say decades, but I mean, the better part of 15 years with Saban. And
Saban
now they're
carried the conference.
Yes, I think that's fair. And now it's like they're the reason that a lot of other conferences can make legitimate arguments because of Bama's performances against Florida State and against Indiana, which is just oddly ironic.
Yeah, I agree too. I found that interesting because it's not like you snuck through the Big 12. You dominated the Big 12. And regardless of what that says about the teams you played, Texas struggling against Mississippi State, against Kentucky, against teams that aren't any good at all in the SEC. It's like it's not equal across the board all the time. But yet, because Texas Tech, just couldn't get it going on offense, and Baron Morton had a bad day, all of a sudden the whole conference is weak and Texas Tech is weak and the wins mean nothing. And I don't know. I found that interesting.
Yep.
And I also think it's funny how the people that are so loud about their conference affiliation are so many times the worst programs in those conferences. Right? Like the Arkansas fans are so
Totally.
loud about being in the SEC, and their football program hasn't been relevant since their head coach did something really dumb in like what 2008, 2009. Auburn, same thing. I mean, Auburn's been more relevant more recently, but
They
it's
won a
like
title.
yeah, they won a title, so it's different. But they've gone through what 3 head coaches since then 4 something like that. I just think that's interesting that the worst teams in those conferences are the loudest about their conference affiliation.
It's true.
That's a great point.
I love that.
I think that's a great point. Yeah, and it's something too that as what this portal haul this year could potentially mean for Texas Tech. Just looking at the roster currently, this is so long term thinking ahead, Z. But you get Sorsby. You get Remain. Let's just for hypotheticals say you get Cam Coleman, just for fun. Where is Texas Tech ranked to start the year next year?
And the AP poll ranking at the start of the year is totally based on how many headlines did you make?
Yeah.
How many headlines did you make? You do something like that, and I think you were in the top 10, like pretty firmly.
Agreed.
I would think so too.
Yep.
I would argue
6.
you could be in the top 7 or 6. I mean, with that type of haul, portal, with Sorsby being the number 1 quarterback in the portal, I do think that's going to make Tech look very attractive. I mean, we see how wrong the AP voters are. I think when we broke down the AP at the end of the year, like half of the teams they had in the top 15 weren't even ranked at the end of the year. So it doesn't mean it's always right, but Texas Tech is going to be a very nice looking team going into next season with Sorsby being the quarterback and some other guys that you might be adding in the next couple of weeks as well too. So
Zyler, let me ask you this question. Do you think, obviously with the Hammond injury out all spring, not back till maybe mid-season next year at the earliest, Mitch transferring, Barron graduating, do you take 2 portal quarterbacks, or what do you do there from that perspective?
I think you do. I think you'd love to have Mitch Griffiths back if you can find a way. I think Oklahoma State's been in contact with him. It just depends on what he wants. Like, do you want to get paid more, or do you want to? Well, and who knows what the market is for him, because Hammond will be back next year. It's not like he's going to miss the whole season, but you need a number 2 that's at least serviceable. And it's the exact same situation that you found yourself in, although not as bad. Like, we need you to come here and very clearly be the number 2, and then you're going to be the number 3. Who wants to leave their current school to do that? And who wants to, like, what kind of caliber of quarterback can you get to do that? I do think you will be adding another quarterback.
Sam Leavitt, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
So you don't think we'll just roll with Lloyd Jones as our 3rd? Because that seems like if we bring in another quarterback, if I were him, I would leave personally.
Well, and Stephen Cannon's coming in.
So I guess, but it's like, do you feel good about that? Like week 1, where it's like Sorsby, Jones, and Cannon.
I mean,
Like,
to me, it's unlikely that we would find a guy I would feel more confident in Lloyd Jones who's willing to come here and be a 3rd string. That's
and maybe you're
I guess
right.
how I feel like
you could be right. And the other thing that those guys have is you've got KV and Bryant coming like a season from now. Like, and you still have Will Hammond on the roster.
Well, Will Hammond, he tore his ACL. Like, he's going to be available at some point next season. It's not like the kid's
Probably
not going to
week
be.
1.
Yeah, like I thought he there's a potential he could be your backup week 1. I mean, if all goes according to plan rehab.
And Pat's expected to be back week 1, which whether that's realistic or not, who knows? But
Who'd you say?
Mahomes, the exact same injury, tore his ACL.
Oh, okay.
Well, but Will's better than Pat, so like it's his recovery will be faster.
Your QB room is going to have a weird shuffling at the end of next season. Like, who is going to be in that room? It's going to be really interesting.
Well, what we need to keep in mind though is, I mean, you guys said, or somebody said, I like Sorsby because Sorsby is for sure 1 year. Leavitt has 2 years left, and so I like Sorsby because you got Sorsby, then you got Hammond, and then you've got KV, and after that, and so it kind of works out nicely if that happens. But I don't know if we'll get to see that. We'll see.
If I know anything about tech and QB rotations, it is not going to work out like that at all.
Yeah, we'll see.
Can we
I,
pay for it to work out like that, please?
I wanted
don't
to
think
get
so.
to some questions in the chat here. Can you talk? Lee J says, can you talk more about realignment? Oh, let's not get Conrad started on this. Where would Tech fall, and how soon would this happen? It, I don't know. Conrad, you want to go on your Tech will
Yeah.
join the SEC next by 2028 was your bet? What was it?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the thing is, no one knows. Like, no one knows. We'll see I don't know when the next realignment is. Either when is the next realignment? Is it 28 or 2030?
A lot of those agreements, those media rights agreements, are going to expire in like 2032, 2033, stuff like that. And so typically you get those formalized, and what's going to happen about 2 years before that.
Okay.
So you're going to start seeing some moves within the next 3-4 years, I think, if not sooner.
So let me ask you this, and I'm asking this because I don't know how this works, and I'm asking you because you know how everything works. But can you kick schools out of conferences? Like, can you just say I don't want you anymore, or how does that work? How would that work if something like that were to happen?
I have no idea what the bylaws would look like. The problem with doing that for any school is that if you kick out the bottom school and then you are now the bottom school, you would probably not be very incentivized to kick out said bottom school, because then you're next. So, what is that like? Does Mississippi State really want to kick out Vanderbilt? Or, what would that look like? I think the more likely thing is that schools leave said conferences and form new conference, then old conferences remain and boot members out. Or they do some sort of revenue sharing agreement where those members are almost demoted anyway. So
Based on what they bring in for the conference.
What they perceive that they bring in for the conference, yeah.
I would imagine there's significant lawsuits at play too there. Like, if you've been in the SEC for 50, 60 years and you're getting kicked out if you're Mississippi State, let's say. I'm just trying to think of a team that hasn't been great the last couple of years. I don't know if that's going to go over too well. I can't see that being a situation where teams are kicking you out. More so,
I think they would leave, and
they would leave. Yeah,
like we would never kick Mississippi State out of the SEC. We are going to the SEC plus, and you can stay in the main SEC. Or the secondary is like, I think that's more in line. And the ACC is on a very strict deadline. Like, that conference will not be relevant in 4 to 5 years. That buyout number for Clemson and Florida State and Miami will go down each year, and they will leave that conference. And so when that happens, what then does the SEC really want to go to 20? Does the Big Ten want to go to 20?
Why not just assume them? Why not, if that's possible, right, for the Big 12 to bring in Miami, Florida State, and Clemson?
Would Miami leave the ACC to play UCF?
I mean, they would be playing better. I mean, they play Texas Tech and BYU and Florida State and Clemson.
Yeah.
Like, that's a better slate top for those 5 schools than playing.
I think that only happens if the SEC takes their pick and Miami's not in that, and then also not in the Big Ten.
And these decisions are strictly monetarily driven. Do they get enough money to offset paying the buyout from the ACC? Does the Big 12 provide that? Maybe. Does the SEC or the Big 10 money provide that? Almost certainly. And so a lot of weird stuff that'll happen, and it'll break out of nowhere, and it'll probably break in the summer. So just be on the lookout for that over the next 3 years.
Yeah, well, that'll be interesting. We've got some comment. If Sorsby doesn't come to Tech, he should be worried about Conrad or Zyler making moves. I don't know. I think Sorsby's a lock for Tech, but we'll see what happens. Are we trying to make moves on the O-line or in the portal or are letting one of the young guys fight for the spots? We touched on that a little earlier as well too. The O-line has got several returning guys. You've got a lot of depth there, so it'll be interesting to see. But you might be looking at the guard position specifically for the O-line, so just keep an eye on that. Again, the portal has only been open since the 2nd. There's still 12 days of this thing left. It's still very early. A lot of guys are making moves, but there's plenty that could change for sure. So, man, I'm bummed. We've been going an hour now, and no Sorsby breaking news outside of the reporting that he is making his decision tonight. So one thing you can expect from us here this week with everything going on, we will be putting out episodes reacting if needed to certain huge news. But I don't know, guys. It looks like we might not get the Sorsby news on this episode tonight,
I
unfortunately.
was really hoping to react live, but
I was
don't
hoping
know.
to react live. Maybe we'll get back on and do a reaction, but we're assuming based off the reporting, that Brendan Sorsby will be a Red Raider, based on what we're hearing coming out of him leaving Baton Rouge, not an LSU Tiger. That's the expectation from On3 as well. They're projecting him to be a Texas Tech Red Raider, but we will see. Cam Coleman, real quick. Let's touch on that because I thought best receiver in the portal out of Auburn, scheduled to visit you on the 6th. Clay, you said you're not too high. Why is that?
I mean, I would love for it to happen, but he's genuinely the best player in the portal, one of the best players in the country. Like, you're just bidding against a bunch of other teams. Some of those did not have to pay whatever we're paying Brennan Sorsby. It just seems like a long shot unless he really wants to play with Brennan Sorsby. And, I know that I'm sure we would match whatever is the highest offer, but I'm not saying it can't happen. I feel like I'm not putting, my hopes up on that.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. Well, there's two pieces with Cam Coleman. It's the quarter. I would assume from what he experienced over the last 2 years at Auburn, he wants a guy who can throw the ball to him, who will hyper target him, who actually has the ability to throw the football at the level that Cam wants. That's number one. If you lock in Brendan Sorsby, that question's answered. Then you get to the money conversation. That's not, from what we've read and what we've seen, again, we don't know, and subscribe to Stay With Us on YouTube. That's not going to be an issue. If you got the quarterback and you got the money, why not us? Why not Texas Tech?
Make a compelling case.
That's a great case, Conrad. With that, why not Texas Tech? Why not subscribe to the Broadway Shuffle and tune in with us every week, Monday and Thursday? We still, it's funny because the portal came so fast. Like, we haven't been able to do a season review. I was kind of thinking, okay, we'll get to the season review for Texas Tech on Monday's show, but maybe we push that to Thursday. What's next for Texas Tech, and have some news there too. Do we have any Tommy Tubbervilles ready to go? I know that's typically something we do on our Sunday night episodes with our reaction to Monday, and I haven't thought of one, but if you guys have got some, and if people in the chat have any, we can close with that, and then we will be back to react if Sorsby does end up committing. We'll have a live reaction video to that as well that we'll drop on YouTube or Spotify. But as we close this episode specifically, Z, you got a Tommy Tubberville for the fans?
Yeah, Conrad, I may be stealing this one for you. Baylor football, it's just not going well down in Waco right now. Bryson Washington's going to be leaving. They've lost some really good players. They don't really have anybody lined up in the portal. I don't really think they know what's going on. I am so glad that they hired a magazine reporter to be their athletic director, and that the things are going well down there. Tough look for our friends down in Waco, but man, is it so sweet after all of the stuff that they got to do in the mid 2000s. So Baylor football is my Tommy Tubberville.
That's a good one. Conrad, you like that one? You double down on that?
Yeah, no, I'm not gonna take the bait. I'm gonna leave that exactly where it is. Zyler said all that needed to be said. I'm gonna go a little I don't know, maybe closer to home. My Tommy is national media that write inflammatory things to stir things up on the internet that don't actually believe what they write. We, all of us, if you're listening to this, we are not doing this full time. We're four fans having a great time. This is a joy to do for us, but we do value intellectual conversation when it comes to these things, and we all have our own opinions. But when you write things like the Big 12 should not get a bid to the college football playoff, that's just not a reasonable take at all. So inflammatory comments online, those are my Tommy Tubbervilles of the week. And also I'll say maybe a little, honorable mention. One is the Tech fans that are absolutely unnecessarily just taking personal shots at a player that did so much for you. That would be my honorable one.
Please don't ever leak our group chat and the things that I was saying.
Yeah. Taking the high road, Conrad Mills there. Clayton, who you got?
Yeah, I'll give one to Lane Kiffin. It's got to be a tough week for him trying to go to the Sugar Bowl to get an interview while his former team is moving on to the semifinals and then getting bullied by Joey McGuire for his QB1. Not a good look for him this week. I actually think Ole Miss is probably the team I'm rooting for now, just because it would be so hilarious
So funny.
if
It
Lane
would be.
left them because he felt like he couldn't win a title there, and then they won a title without him immediately.
I mean,
That would
think about this. He left because he thought he'd have a better chance of winning a national championship at LSU than Ole Miss, and then Ole Miss
Yeah.
goes and plays for a national championship, gets to the game without him. That I mean, you couldn't write a better story than that. My Tommy Tubberville, and how do I say this? It's people online that use information like it's their own and report that. And I've seen a lot of that going on, and like first when you don't, and you're taking it from people that bust their butt to find out that info and report it fairly. And so it's those people that are my Tommies. I'm seeing that too, man. And we don't pretend we're not reporters here on the Broadway Shuffle. We give you 4 opinions and our thoughts. We don't pretend to know it all, because I promise you we don't. But some people do, and those people that do, you're my Tommy Tubberville of the week. So that's how we'll close this live show today. We will be back on Thursday with normal scheduled programming, with a full episode. What's next for Texas Tech in 2026? We will do that, but we will be reacting to any portal news that drops. We'll make sure to drop those videos on YouTube and release the episodes on Spotify and Apple. So make sure, if you would, to like and subscribe, rate and review our show, share it with friends. We appreciate all of the shufflers here that joined us this hour, and we will catch you guys next time on the Broadway Shuffle. I hope everyone had a great New Year, outside of New Year's Day, unfortunately. But 2026 can only go up from the New Year's Day that was. So we will see you guys here next time on the Broadway Shuffle.